Live from Sin City, it's the Socks and Pinstripes Podcast. And now, here's the star of the show, Diet Dr. Griffin!
This is Diet Dr. Griffin back with another episode of the Socks and Pinstripes Podcast. Like, rate, and subscribe. Shane's with us today. How you doing, Shane?
I'm doing well. Griffin, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. We don't have a whole lot of free agency moves to talk about this week. So after we kind of cover that, I was thinking we could talk a little bit about some fantasy baseball stuff because it's coming up on the point of the year where fantasy baseball leagues are going to open up. It typically happens around the end of January. And now it seems like a good time as any to talk about that. But first, let's just talk about some of the moves of the week. And one of the more perplexing moves that I saw this happen this week was that the Dodgers traded Gavin Lux to the Reds. Did you see about this?
No, I did not.
So I'm trying to think of this out from the Reds' perspective more than the Dodgers' perspective because when the Dodgers signed Hae-Sung Kim last week, it sort of made sense that he would be the infielder spot.
Yeah.
Gavin Lux was kind of one of their top prospects. They wanted to have him be like the everyday shortstop, but he just never could put it together. He got that ACL tear in spring training the one year he was going to be starting.
Did he play he played third for them, right?
Maybe in spells, he's primarily a middle infielder. I think he occasionally played in the outfield too.
Oh, yeah, second base. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like the transaction trackers have him listed as a second baseman, but he
Okay.
had shortstop capabilities as well.
Who played third for them in the World Series, the Dodgers?
Probably Muncy.
Oh, Max Muncy. For whatever reason, I get the two of them confused. All right. Anyways,
There's
I'm
actually two Max Muncies, which is hilarious. There's a Max Muncy in the A system too.
here now. Weird. That's not a very common name.
I know. The Dodgers acquired an outfielder and one of the rare instances where you can actually trade for draft picks because trading for draft picks in MLB is not the normal thing you can do.
Yeah.
You can't actually like trade your first round draft pick like you can do in the NFL or in basketball. You
Well,
can
and
only trade.
only a quarter of them ever make it to the pros anyway. So
Yeah, yeah. But like you can only trade competitive balance picks, which is like the picks that you get when free agents that you give qualifying offer to sign at other places. That's sort of what those are the picks you can move.
interesting. That's strange.
Yeah, I mean the Dodgers got basically what I believe was like the 37th overall pick or something like that.
Oh, okay. That's actually not bad. So
Yeah, yeah, and saving some money, so that's not the worst thing in the world. I just try to figure this out from the Reds' perspective, where they're gonna go, because you already have a crowded infield, and
yeah.
you're getting Matt McLain back. Like, are you gonna put him in the outfield? McLain was probably gonna be the second baseman now that they traded India, so I'm just confused from the Reds' perspective on it.
Yeah, maybe they're just going to compete for Pittsburgh as last in that division. So
I don't know, man. You don't hire Terry Francona as your head coach to just try and not win.
that's also true. So
Like, why would Tito come out of retirement to be like managing for the Pirates?
yeah, that's all right. Touche
Yeah,
on that one, but it's still.
um, the Royals are keeping Michael Lorenzen to a 1 year deal. I
Okay.
had heard rumblings that he was trying to do his two-way player thing again. I don't know if that's going to happen now if he's with the Royals again.
Oh, I didn't even realize he was a two-way player, but I
Yeah,
think Shohei Ohtani is going to open the door for
a
people
few
like
years
that.
ago, Michael Lorenzen was the only other player in fantasy baseball that had Michael Lorenzen hitter and Michael Lorenzen pitcher.
And he's on the Royals, and they're in the American League, so it didn't even.
Yeah, but I mean, he has been a pitcher for exclusively for so long. I think that just kind of dropped off.
Oh, gotcha.
He's kind of a middle of the road pitcher. It's definitely not a bad deal for the Royals. He can eat some innings, and the money is fine.
Yeah, no. I mean, he was solid in fantasy this
Yeah,
year. So.
yeah,
Serviceable. Yeah.
yeah. Given that the Royals already have a pretty good top three, having him as a four or a five isn't a bad option. So
Yeah.
good on
Yeah.
them. Chris Martin, not the Coldplay singer, signed with the Rangers,
Nice.
which is pretty solid back end reliever. So good move for them. Now, one that kind of makes me cringe a bit, and only because it's the team that's involved. The A's got to extend Brent Rooker.
Oh,
And
you know that they actually sold out their season tickets in Sacramento this year.
oh, man, more and more evidence that it's going to be the Sacramento A's, and
Yeah.
good on Sacramento if they can keep them. I'd rather if we're getting a team in Vegas, I would much rather get an expansion team than get the A's, man. I don't like that ownership group.
Yeah, no, I mean for sure. And they introduced him to I mean, speaking of Brent Rooker, he and I forget who else, but it was I think three other people, four in total, were courtside to a Kings game, and they introduced him as the Sacramento A's. So
Well, what's interesting is that I didn't get a chance to talk about this when it happened, but Dave Cavill, the president of operations for the A's, he stepped down actually a few weeks ago.
oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, he basically kind of stepped down, but it was probably one of those, we're firing you, but we're gonna let you say you step down.
Yeah, one of those like, hey, you can resign to save face, and then,
Yeah, and it's very
or we
hard.
can fire you. Either way, it's your choice. So.
And it's funny because it's hard for presidents to maintain their jobs during these extensive type move situations, which is probably what happened. It had related to the move. I don't think it had related to do with his job performance. It's probably just doing what the owners wanted him to do.
Yeah, and with that kind of thing, it's like you're already moving to a new place. Probably just change a couple more things while you're at it and see what happens. So
Yeah. So back to Rooker's deal. He's signing for a 5 year, $60 million extension. And a
okay,
lot of that is because of the fact that he is still under arbitration. He's got 3 years of arbitration, so they're buying a lot of that out. That's why the value of the deal is so light.
gotcha.
But it does include a vesting option for a sixth season, and it can push the value of the contract up to 90 million, including escalators.
Oh wow, okay.
So there's probably some, signing bonuses and incentives in there, probably.
Yeah, I think my hot take is that this year the Athletics are going to be even better than the Mariners, just moving up in the division. So.
Wow, that's really a hot take, especially early on in the year when there's still a lot of, decent players out there like Anthony Santander,
Yeah. Yep.
who you guys could probably use.
You heard it. You heard it here first. I'm going through my depression phase
Yeah.
in Mariners free agency right now. So
Well, the White Sox made a couple moves this week. They signed former Red Sox player Bobby Dahlbeck to a minor league deal. He's a
okay.
first baseman. And they signed Martin Perez to a 1 year, $5 million contract, and he's probably the best pitcher on the White Sox right now.
That's cool. That's good for Perez. I like him. He's a good
He's
guy.
probably going to get flipped at the deadline, you got to think.
Yeah.
He was
Well,
last year.
they're going to be just a dumpster fire again this year. It
I
seems.
think the White Sox may win more games somehow this year than they won last year, but I
Yeah. Well, it's hard to be worse than they were last year.
but their
So,
roster is worse. That's the thing I don't think people are realizing. Their roster is way worse than it was last year, especially.
yeah, that's
You're going to
true.
get the second half White Sox like the entire year.
That's also true.
So,
Oh,
so speaking of guys who might likely be flipped at the deadline, Justin Verlander signed a 1 year deal with the Giants.
oh yeah. Oh man,
It's
Justin.
Mr. Upton for those who in the know.
Yeah, yeah. I was hoping you would say that. I this one to me, I mean, I get it. San Francisco's probably the only team's gonna pay for him. I think the money is fair on it. I don't think he's gonna get any more than that.
Yeah, at this
If
point,
he
he's
has
in
it,
his
I mean,
age.
watch me not take him in the draft when he's available, and then he has like his last Cy Young year, and he's just like to all my haters out there,
I
goodbye.
don't know. He's one of those guys that's probably just going to eat innings at this point. I mean, he wasn't even on the Astros playoff roster last year.
Yeah,
That's how far.
I think he's done. I would love to be proven wrong that this is probably his. I'm surprised he honestly didn't, because he won the World Series on the Astros. I'm surprised he just didn't retire an Astro. I mean, they love him over there, but it is what it is. So,
I think he had another year on his contract at that point.
oh, gotcha. Okay, I'll make him a pitching coach or something. So,
Yeah, he'll have plenty of time to do that.
yeah.
And one of the other moves of the week is that, the Orioles signed Andrew Kittredge. He's a,
Okay,
a bullpen guy.
there we go. If they get some pitching, Oreos, get some pitching.
Now, what's interesting is that the Blue Jays signed Jeff Hoffman to a 3-year, $33 million contract.
And who is Jeff Hoffman? Because
Jeff
I'm not familiar
Hoffman
with him.
is a Phillies reliever who actually made the All-Star team last year.
Oh, okay.
What I had read reports about was that the Orioles were interested in signing Hoffman and had a deal in place, but saw something in his medicals that they didn't like.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how legitimate that is, but
Yeah.
Hoffman was pretty effective last year. So basically, the Phillies have kind of traded relievers because the Phillies signed Jordan Romano from the Blue Jays, and now the Blue Jays signed Hoffman away from the Phillies.
Gotcha.
Not sure who's going to win that one because Hoffman was much better than Romano last year, but Romano does have the greater track record of success.
Maybe Hoffman had like, forearm soreness or whatever, and the Orioles just thought he might have to have Tommy John this year or something. I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
possible they found something in the medicals.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays are a very interesting team because they're much like the East Coast version of the Giants when you think
Yeah.
about it. They
I,
go after all of these free agents and they keep seeming to whiff on them. But
yeah.
whereas, San Francisco has got the shaky reputation as a city, Toronto, from what I have heard, and I've never been to Toronto, but Toronto, from what I've heard, is a really rocking kind of place. It's
Oh,
a,
okay.
a good city. It's kind of an under the radar city where you could probably, be as a baseball player, probably not have to worry about being recognized as much.
I looked at a map of it, and like literally all roads lead to Toronto from everywhere else. It's like a circle of roads just coming into Toronto.
Yeah. I definitely want to go to Toronto at some point. It was on my list of places to go last year for my birthday baseball trip. And
Yeah, apparently that stadium's really awesome too. So,
yeah, there is another situation with that team though, where they're kind of a corporately owned team in a similar vein to the Braves. So they
oh,
might have some budget concerns, but Canada also has greater taxes than the United
yeah,
States does, and I think that's partly a factor too.
yeah. Well, plus Toronto has the six god too. So
So what?
the six god,
I don't
it's a
I'm not familiar with that. What is that?
it's a I of course I say that and then I forget the rapper's name.
Oh, you mean is
Uh,
that Drake thing?
yes, Drake. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Drake has I'm aware of Drake and the Raptors and how he has like sabotaged them over the years, but they did win a
He
champion.
has sabotaged them over the
They
years.
did win a championship within the last, 10, 15 years. So
Yeah, yeah.
they
He's
got
on the
one.
court side at those games. So
Yeah.
plus, and
So
then they also have Degrassi too. So yay, Canada.
yeah, I don't know who that is. Yeah.
Degrassi's it's like a teen kids show.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely don't.
Also starring Drake. So
And your boy Colin Ray signed with the Cubs.
oh yeah, Cubbies, yay, Cubbies. That's my futures bet right there.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of talk a little bit about fantasy baseball because it's fantasy baseball is a unique little animal compared to other fantasy sports, in particular fantasy football, which most people are more likely to have played than any other type of fantasy sports.
Yeah,
Most fantasy baseball leagues are daily leagues. And daily leagues meaning that you have games going on every day and you set your lineup to a different lineup every single day.
yeah,
Fantasy football, you more or less have a daily lineup structure. It's just that there are games only once a week. and you can pretty much just put one guy into one spot for that week. Whereas in fantasy baseball, you can have different guys in different spots every single day.
Yeah.
It's a unique animal in that mess that it requires a much greater level of time commitment.
Well,
Now,
and you can also tweak too much as well.
yes.
So
Yes, and there are also weekly leagues out there if you are under a time crunch to where you can basically set your team once a week. And I think the first games are played. I've never actually played in a weekly league before, but there are weekly leagues out there.
okay. So
There
and
are,
then it just like locks in your players for the rest of the week. Is that the idea?
yeah. And
Okay.
in some of those leagues and some platforms, Shohei Ohtani, for example, is one player.
Oh,
So
that'd be
you
cool.
can make a decision whether in an individual week to use him as a pitcher or as a hitter.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. In a daily league, though, if you had Ohtani as a player, you could basically just swap him out as a hitter for the days that he's pitching and vice versa.
Yeah. Yep.
But I know that we both play on Yahoo for our fantasy league, and Shohei Ohtani is two different players in that league.
Yeah, that was how I got the best player in baseball 2 years ago. So,
Yeah.
because someone
So
accidentally made a mistake and thought that they were getting both Shoheis and they were only getting one Shohei. So,
I had my first year playing fantasy baseball. There was a guy in my league who had Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, for like months, even though that was the year that he was out with Tommy John surgery, like from the jump. Everybody knew he was hurt. He was never going to pitch that year, but he had him on his team and he just didn't make the move. And I was like, "What are you doing?"
you think Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to have a bounce back year this year, or not?
I don't know because he's already tore his ACL on one knee, and then I think he tore his other ACL on the other knee.
Yeah, so he's
So
got both of them. I mean, he was
yeah,
the MVP of the league after the surgery on the one knee.
but is he gonna steal bases like he used to if he's had ACL tears on both his knees?
Yeah, I don't. That's the
You
thing.
know,
I
like
don't. I
is
don't
he
know because he
gonna?
doesn't hit for power. So, or I mean, he has a little power, but
Dude, he hit 40 home runs that year.
he's he's. Yeah, I know.
He has a little power. He hit 40 home runs. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Shohei Ohtani hit 50 and stole 50 bases, so you're not the best anymore, Ronald. So,
No, no. Let's circle back to some of the fantasy baseball stuff. In fantasy baseball, you typically have assemble a roster of teams where you have all of the positions. So you'll have catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, third base, and three outfielders. Typically, you will also have a couple of utility spots on your team in a general format. You can generally customize a league as well if you start your own league, but generally speaking, you have the main starting positions and then a couple utility spots. And then
yeah.
you will have two starting pitchers, two reliever spots, and typically four pitching spots that can just be used for other relievers and starting pitchers. Now, the typical scoring format is what they call a 5 by 5. So you have five hitting categories and five pitching categories. Those are going to be batting average, runs, home runs, RBIs, and stolen bases for hitting. And then you're going to have wins, ERA, strikeouts, whip, which is walks and hits per inning pitched, and then saves.
And holds.
Oh, no, no, not in traditional. Not in traditional.
Oh, yeah, okay. We're doing traditional. Gotcha.
Yeah, because you can, like in our league, we don't have saves, we have saves and holds. And we're a 10 by 10 league, so we have 10 offensive stats and then 10 pitching stats. But strictly speaking, the
Okay.
traditional style
Gotcha.
is what we just discussed. So you can have a lot of different nuances. In my league, for example, we don't have batting average, we use on base percentage instead.
Yeah.
I think it's fair.
Because we play Moneyball. Let's go.
Yeah, because he gets on base. So one of the first things I would say is know your league format. Because if you play in a league with on-base percentage versus average, then it creates a different dynamic where some players are more valuable than others. And if you play in a league with batting average, some of those players aren't really valuable. You don't
You
want
don't want a guy who walks a lot in a batting average league
Right.
because that doesn't count. So
And there's even more nuance in baseball because there's two different kind of scoring types. There's head to head, and then there's like rotisserie. And
oh, what's rotisserie?
rotisserie is basically like a compilation of all of the stats. So
Oh,
you don't go head to head. Typically, fantasy football leagues, you go up against an opponent each week, and whoever has the most points typically wins. Where the
yeah,
and it's they run typically point structure where you get specific points for scoring touchdowns, points for rushing yards, receiving yards, etc.
yeah,
Baseball is kind of head-to-head leagues are typically whoever has the most home runs, whoever has the most runs. You don't get points for specific things. Although there are points leagues out there, typically speaking, fantasy baseball leagues are kind of the combination of rotisserie with the head-to-head element in
yeah.
there.
That makes sense.
But rotisserie, in a stricter sense, is how all this actually started. Was you would have over the course of the season, you would basically have which team has the most home runs, which team has the highest batting average, which team has the most saves. And those you'd get points for whoever has the most in each individual category. And then whoever dominated the categories the most would win over the course of the season.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. The first time I
So
played
it's like not only is it averages, it's averages of averages. Got it.
Yeah, and the first year I played fantasy baseball ever was like when I was in college, and I played in a rotisserie league, and that was the last year I played fantasy baseball for about 15 years. Yeah, that was no fun. So
Gotcha.
I would
Well, what
say
wasn't fun about it, I guess.
just it was much different because I had played in head-to-head leagues at that point,
Yeah,
and it was too much. It was a new sport. It was a new scoring system. It was just a lot of new stuff. And the thing about fantasy baseball is that it's a much longer league, like much longer league season where you have to kind of be more mindful of people going on cold streaks and stuff.
yeah, and not trade them like I did with Christian Walker one year. So
Yeah, there's some consistency issues. You don't really experience it as much in basketball. Like basketball and hockey, those are sports where you have longer seasons, but you have less games and stuff. But you're not going to have
yeah,
like LeBron James, for example, is not going to go like, 2 for 50 or something over a course of like a couple of games. And
yeah. I mean, he'll probably just be in the G League at that point in time. So
yeah, I mean, like he might, really good basketball players are going to have bad games every once in a while, sure, but they're
yeah,
not going to have like a week to 2 weeks where they're just completely useless.
yeah. So yeah, I guess that's the bad game versus bad month, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll actually happen a lot. You'll have a guy like Gunnar Henderson, for example, who was completely useless for, the first 2 months of the season and gets, dumped off of two teams. And then by the time the third team picks him up, he goes on a 4-month hot streak and wins Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
It's like that that's
So,
that's fantasy baseball more than anything. So,
yep. Yeah,
um,
one thing that I do is I never look at people who I drop because I just don't want to know if they turn it around. So
and I'm the complete opposite. I always look at the people that I drop.
yeah, I'm like, you dropped them for a reason, Shane. Just don't go back, okay?
Well, sometimes you do go back because sometimes you make mistakes.
That's true. Yeah.
I did that. I dropped Yanier Diaz last year for like a week, and then the week that I dropped him, he hit like 4 home runs, and then I grabbed him back before anybody else took him.
Nice.
So sometimes that happens
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
One thing about fantasy baseball is that each platform has and when I say platform, I mean like website, like Yahoo or CBS or ESPN. They all have their own positional rules. So each player can have, because you can in baseball have multiple positions. You're
Yeah.
not locked into being like strictly a quarterback or a wide receiver or a running back. You can have second base, first base eligibility and have outfield eligibility all at the same time. I think
Yeah.
Mookie Betts at one point last year had shortstop, second base, and outfield.
Yeah, and they never gave Josh Rojas outfield, even though I mean he had a terrible year last year, but he played in the outfield, and they
Well,
never
there's
gave it to
there's a number of required days of games and number of starts that
him.
have to hit in order to gain outfield eligibility or whatever eligibility. On Yahoo, I believe it's 5 games started or 10 games where you made an appearance.
Yeah, okay.
And so positional eligibility will shift year to year depending on the number of games that people played in certain spots.
Yeah.
Like I believe Brent Rooker, depending on the format, he may be utility only. And utility
Oh yeah.
only is basically like a DH.
Yeah.
But we were talking about Shohei Ohtani earlier. Shohei Ohtani would be a utility only player
Yeah.
under most formats.
What position do you think he'd play if he wasn't pitcher?
I believe Shohei played in the outfield in Japan, so
Okay.
that would be my guess.
Probably what, center fielder, probably.
I don't remember what outfield position he played. I thought he was a corner outfielder, but I did not look that up.
Save his speed for the bases. I like it. It's a good strategy.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he's fast, but he might not be that fast.
Well, I mean, he's still.
Well, I mean,
Do the same thing
it's
you did to
easier to
me with
steal
Ronald
bases
Acuna Jr.
now.
He stole 60 bases this year, so he's a little fast.
Yeah, but I mean, it's easier to steal bases now than it used to be.
Oh,
Like
I mean,
Mike
but
Trout.
still, you can't do it while being slow. So
Well, I mean, like Shohei Ohtani. I mean, Mike Trout has like 90 plus grade speed, but he's not. He would never like steal a whole lot of bases in the past few years because he just get hurt too much.
yeah, well, that's what he tried
Like,
to show everyone that he
okay,
still
okay.
had it this year, and then he just went on the IL for the rest of the year. So
Here's a trivia question for you.
okay,
What is besides this past year for Shohei Ohtani, what
yep.
is the highest number of stolen bases that he has had in a given season? Any season of his, what do you think is the highest?
Oh man, this is gotcha. 25.
Oh, you almost nailed it. He had 26 stolen bases in 2020.
Oh man, yes. I
That was
love
his
it.
highest number of stolen bases.
Okay, so he just wanted to go
He
for the
had
record.
he had 20 stolen bases in 2023.
Well, now I really wish he would have hit that 60th home run. I mean, not because.
Well, you mean the
Oh,
60th stolen base, you mean?
oh
He
yeah,
was,
yeah.
he was only at
60th.
54 home runs, so he wasn't anywhere near
Oh,
66.
55, 55. Yeah, okay, never mind then. Yeah,
I,
whatever.
I'm very happy he stayed at 50-50 because I would have not had to want to buy 55-55 merchandise after buying 50
Yeah,
fifty merchandise
yeah.
for everybody for the holidays.
50-50, which also, thank you, by the way. It's awesome. I got it on my
Yeah.
bookshelf. Uh, it also 50-50 looks better than 55-55, like on a shirt. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah.
I can't steal for 55. Well, actually, I can't hit 55 home runs is really what it should have been because he did have 59 stolen bases.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's always the
Anyway,
home runs. So,
yeah, we have veered off a bit on the fantasy baseball topics a bit here.
oh
But
yeah, sorry. That was my bad.
now, now typically speaking, you play in leagues of 12, but you can play in leagues of 8 or 10 or sometimes even like 15 or more.
Oh, geez.
And typically the lower number of players that are in the league you kind of refer to as a shallow league, and a deeper league is when you go higher up in the number of teams or in the number of players in the roster that you have, because
Gotcha.
sometimes you can have more players.
Oh, okay.
There are some leagues that are like 20 plus
Yeah, I
teams.
think if I had too many players, I think I would actually be worse of a player because I would just get so antsy about putting people places, and I think I would just miss everyone's hot streak.
Yeah, that's one of the things you kind of have to. Some managers like to, have a short leash with players and ride the hot hand. Others like to just kind of ride out, go with the flow, and just kind of ride out a person's bad streaks, or just, the time when Aaron Judge is going to go 0 for 25, and you just kind of have to like deal with it because are you really going to cut Aaron Judge for going 0 for 25?
Or when you pick up Reynaldo Lopez after he becomes a starter on the Braves, has 2 terrible months, and then is like one of the best pitchers in baseball. So
Well, you drafted Ronaldo Lopez last year and cut him on draft night, which is one of the more perplexing moves that I have seen. I don't know. You have to explain that one to me sometime, but
I had and I yeah I my idea that I had at the time I remember thinking was genius, and then it just wasn't. So I
so
couldn't tell you my thought process, but it sounded great at the time. So
we could probably do like a whole video just based on like drafting stuff. But most drafts typically work in a snaking style, and you will have a randomly assigned number to you that won't be revealed until you basically enter the draft room.
yeah,
So one thing I would definitely say is that going into a draft, you should, if you're going to manually draft, and you can auto draft your team, there's no shame in that. It's just sometimes it's kind of a mixed bag when you auto draft.
yeah.
One thing I would say, if you are going to draft manually, do a few mock drafts, if only to just kind of see the flow of the players, to kind of see general idea where people go, and also just to kind of get a flow of the actual drafting mechanics and the process of using the platform. Because I can tell you, my first ever like real live draft, I drafted the wrong player.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, it worked out that year, but
Oh, and
um,
also do it on your computer because
yes,
you
that's
can
another
you
one.
can see a lot more. The year that I won, I drafted on my phone, so I guess maybe I should be more of a phone guy. But I liked doing it on the computer more. So
I've done both. I've never actually done a live draft on my phone, but I have done like mock drafts and stuff on your phone.
yeah.
You kind of just have a better flow of the information.
Well, and you can see who's coming up, where potentially your next spot's going to be. Because on your phone, you're basically just looking at the top 5 players, and then you can scroll down, but
Yeah,
you're kind of just like doing more guessing than you would be on the computer. So
you can kind of get a bit lost.
yeah, yeah, which happened to me a couple of times. So
And one thing I would say, if you're doing mock drafts, I would suggest doing mock drafts from different drafting positions in the round, which you should be able to do. You can like
yeah,
pick whatever spot if you want to pick in the beginning of the round, pick in the middle of the round, pick in the end of the round. It's
yeah,
particularly important for the first few rounds to kind of know what players are going to be available, what times, and have a plan. Especially in the first round, you kind of want to know where you want to go, wherever. If you get a late pick in the first round, what direction you want to go. If you go early in the round,
yeah. I
and
like being towards the corners, the beginning or the end, because you get that second, you get to pick like twice right after yourself,
yeah,
basically.
and that's another interesting situation I was going to get into, because sometimes people like that, some people don't like that,
Yeah.
because
I
you have
like it. I think it's great. So
you have to be a bit aggressive, I think, on if you're drafting on the ends, because you'll have a spot where you have to draft back to back or within a couple picks, and you might need to draft certain spots ahead or behind where people normally get picked. You kind of have to do a guessing game. Like, is this person that I want gonna make it back by the time I pick again? And it's a lot harder to guess that when you're not picking for like 25 picks versus when you're picking for maybe 6 or 7.
yeah, yeah.
It's a unique little mechanic there.
It always sucks though when you're picking back to back and it's like there's 2 people in front of you and you're like, okay, these are my 2 players. And then of course one of the 2 people in front of you picks one of those guys and you're like, oh, okay, well that didn't work out. So
Yeah, you're gonna get sniped sometimes by
yeah.
people just picking the one person that you want. I've had that. We've all had that happen to us. There's more drafting nuance and stuff that we can talk about, but we're kind of running low on time for this episode. So do you have any closing remarks, Shane?
Yeah, just a kind of a fun one today. Scott Service was picked up by the San Diego Padres to do player development again, which is what he started doing before he was the skipper of the Mariners. And the Mariners and the Padres share the same training facility in Peoria, Arizona. So that should be interesting.
Ooh, juicy drama there.
because he was not let go professionally at all. It was basically like some high school girl texting the wrong person, breaking up with them is how it went. So
That seems to happen so much today.
yeah.
I mean, do you remember, as a quick aside, remember when Bill Belichick accidentally texted the wrong Brian when he was congratulating he meant to text Brian Daboll for the Giants job, and he texted Brian Flores saying
I
that he
don't
got the
remember that, but
job.
that's
And then Brian
awesome. So
Flores was like, I haven't even interviewed yet, and I got the job. And Bill was like, oh, I meant to text the wrong, I got the wrong Brian, sorry. And then Brian Flores sued the NFL after that.
oh, classic. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So, texting the wrong Brian resulted in evidence to be used in a lawsuit.
Oh, perfect.
And I don't think we can top that. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to call that a show, and we'll see you guys next week with more free agency news. And we'll probably talk more about the fantasy stuff and continue on with the discussion that we're having today.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye now.